Hey guys, and welcome back to another YouTube video. In this video I'll be going through my predictions from last week, going through how I went, and then also predicting the next the next round of games and going through who I think are going to win, I guess. So before we get into the video, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload, and let's get into the video. So as you can see here, 8 for 9 round and 88 total score now. So this first game, I actually predicted Brisbane by 29 and they ended up winning by 81. So they ended up blowing out Richmond last week. And yeah, just a bad pick. Then I tipped Sydney by 16 and they would have, if they kicked straight, won by 16. But they ended up drawing with Geelong. Then Adelaide versus North Melbourne, I picked Adelaide by 35 and they ended up winning here by 66 or something. So another correct tip in tipping the team, but I'm pretty sure most people would have got that. And also tipping 35 is a little bit away. Then the next tip was I tipped Western Bulldogs by 11 and they ended up winning by 29. So not the worst tip, but yeah, just not really that. All my tips this week were long way off pretty much. As well as this tip here, I can tell you Collingwood by 15 and they ended up winning by 78. So a long way off in that tip again. Collingwood just keep on winning and winning and winning. And they're bridging a gap basically here between with them and Port and then the rest of the comp, as Brisbane basically have the place wrapped up unless they lose 3 or 4 straight. Then I predicted Carlton again, another team by 22 points, and they won by 70. So just another bad tip in terms of margin. And then I tipped Melbourne by 34 and they lost by 2. So that was my only tip wrong for the round. And it looked like it was going to get up, but in the end didn't. And yeah, so another tip by 30 or so off again. So I don't think I've had any tip really within 20 or so or 30. And then this last tip, I tipped Saints by 65 and they almost lost to West Coast. They came over them in the last quarter to win. So that was almost a bad tip. Again, another one that the margin was just blown out in, but at least I don't need the margin for that. And now we move on to round 17 and you got Richmond versus Sydney, and I do think the Swans actually do win this, and I'm gonna say by 25 points, as I'm a little bit biased, 1 and 2. I do think the Swans with McCartan and Buddy back are a better outfit than with them out, as well as Mills getting more and more time in the middle, and they probably should have beat Geelong, to be honest. So I expect them to beat Richmond even away from home. Then you have Western Bulldogs versus Collingwood, and I think Collingwood win this, although this could be the game that Collingwood drop. But I just don't see it, to be honest, as I think Collingwood do have a couple of injuries, but they're not major players per se in their side. So I think that they'll be fine, and I think they'll win it by 14 points. You got Brisbane, West Coast, and this one's a simple one, to be honest. I just don't see how West Coast, even though West Coast put up their best game, they have Shuey and Hearn out, as well as some other, I think, injuries as well. And also the fact that Brisbane are a pretty much fully healthy side, so I expect them to roll over them. And I'm not going to predict, I don't think. I think I'm going to be safe in my prediction and say 47 points, but I think this could easily go huge. Even though St Kilda barely beat the West Coast, I do think that Brisbane will just run over the top of them. GWS against Hawthorn. I haven't really liked how Hawthorn have been playing, and I think GWS have actually been playing really well. So I'm going to predict GWS, and I'm going to predict GWS by 21 points. Then you've got also here Melbourne versus St Kilda. I think Melbourne should be favourites, but I think it's going to be a lot tighter. I do think Melbourne are massively missing Oliver, and that has caused a little bit of a shaky return post-bye, as they've lost 2 on the trot and they've let slip Brisbane basically. So if they aren't able to win a couple more, they're gonna forfeit their double chance basically and give it up to, well, if they lose to St Kilda, they'll be behind St Kilda, but I just think that Melbourne are one of the favourites and obviously should be so, favourites overall for the comp, so I think they'll win this game by, I think they'll win it by 16 points. Then you've got Port versus Gold Coast. I think Port will win this game. Another win. I don't know exactly how many that is on the trot. It might be, honestly, they won in round 4, so that was, and they've played now, 15 games, I believe. So that would be now, 12 straight. So this would be for 13. And I think they'll get the job done here by, I would say, even with Took being back, I think they're still going to win it by 27 points. Then you have Geelong versus North Melbourne. I think Geelong win this game by, I think they win it honestly massively. And I don't know if Jesse Cameron will be back. We'll know in a little bit, but he might be back and that might really help. But I think they still win this game by, 39 points, as I do think North Melbourne won't be able to give much. And then you've got Essendon versus Adelaide, two teams that are on the exact same points on the ladder. And who did Essendon lose to last week? They lost to Port. They've also lost to Freo. And they beat Carlton and North Melbourne pre-bye, whereas they beat North Melbourne handsomely. Did Adelaide. Adelaide lost to Collingwood in a very tight game. They smoked the Eagles. And they lost to Gold Coast at TIO. So I do actually think I'm going to tip Adelaide. This is going to be the one. These two games to finish off the round are going to be the games that decide how well someone does this round, as I think the other games are almost not really formalities, but are a lot easier games to pick than these two games here. And I just think that Adelaide are the better side at the moment, and I do think Rory Laird will make a return after having not the greatest game last week. And I think the three-prong of Dawson, Keys and Laird will help Adelaide overcome Essendon, and I think Adelaide will win by 13 points. And then we move on to the last game of the round, and I could see the reasons for both, as Freo did lose to the Western Bulldogs and Carlton did beat Hawthorn, but Hawthorn aren't terribly tough. They did beat Gold Coast. They lost to Essendon and lost to Melbourne. Freo lost to Richmond and lost to GWS. I could see both sides of the table, but I think that you will see Freo in front of their home crowd get a win to basically keep their final hopes alive, as they'll jump up to 32, and I think you'll see a little bit of a bridge between the likes of, not really, to be fair, as Swans will be on 30 points, but you'll start to see a staircase rather than this big clump of 28. You'll start to see a couple teams stuck at, more teams get towards that 30 to 36 point range, and I think you will see a team get through on 12.5 wins, I think is going to be the barrier. So I think Freo win this game, and I think they win it by, I'm going to say 21 points. So those are my predictions. If I go back to the main screen here. Those are my predictions, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks, guys. Goodbye.